Today, President Trump announcing that he is going to extend the deadline for Iran to reach a deal with the United States before he targets Iran's energy facilities. Now, he's now pausing the threat of energy plant destruction by 10 days to April 6th, saying talks are, quote, going very well. Now, Trump also suggested the U.S. may no longer want to reach a peace deal.
I say they're lousy fighters, but they're great negotiators. They are begging to work out a deal. I don't know if we'll be able to do that. I don't know if we're willing to do that. They should have done that 4 weeks ago.
Now, the worldwide tensions over strikes on energy targets have been rising ever since Israel struck Iran's largest gas field last week. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the critical South Pars natural gas field. You see it right there. Critical location, okay? This is an energy lifeline for Iran. It's situated right there between Iran and Qatar. It's in the Persian Gulf, and it contains, look at that right there, 51 trillion cubic meters of natural gas. Think about that. Now, increasing concerns about energy sources, along with increasing doubt about a peace deal, it's taken a toll on the economy. Look at the markets today. Oil prices still going up. The price of U.S. crude oil rose near $95 per barrel. That's up more than 4%. International Brent crude oil, okay, this one, 5% rose to more than $109 per barrel. The cost of U.S. crude oil is up more than 40% since the war started. And as those oil prices rose, we got to talk about the markets. Markets sunk. Got the Dow dropped 470 points. NASDAQ closed down nearly 2.4%, and the S&P 500 having its worst day since the war started, falling 1.7%. Now, we do want to talk about the latest of the war and the breaking TSA news. So I want to get right now to NewsNation's Joe Khalil, who's live in Doha, Qatar, and Libbey Dean, who's live in Washington. Libbey, I'm going to start with you. Breaking news here. So when exactly, and this is, a great idea in theory, right? When exactly is the president expected to sign this order to pay the TSA workers? And the second part is, why did he wait until now, right? If theoretically he could have always done this, I'm sure criticism will be he waited to pressure the Democrats to get what he wanted in a deal with respect to DHS and ICE funding and the SAVE Act, sent ICE into the airports. Again, the argument would be at the expense of TSA workers who quit and weren't getting paid. So I'm sure we're getting that kind of reaction as well.
Well, Jesse, I think the White House would push back on that and say they were hoping that lawmakers could strike a deal. But this hit its breaking point when I was speaking with sources today because of the fact that TSA was set to miss another paycheck, and that was set to happen tomorrow. And that is why this breaking point happened, where the president said that he is going to sign this order. That stall on the Hill, though, that happened in the last 48 hours, also another point that pushed us to where we are now with the president announcing this. And then also speaking with White House officials tonight, what they're telling me as far as timeline of when this could be signed, Jesse, what they said is as soon as it's ready, the president will sign off on it. We haven't been told that that has happened yet, Jesse. And
it raises an interesting legal question, because usually it's Congress, right, who would direct the federal pay. They appropriate where the money comes from. And speaking of the money, and by the way, I don't know if anybody would honestly challenge TSA agents from being paid. If this works, this works. Where's the money to pay TSA coming from?
It's actually this mechanism that they've used previously to pay the Coast Guard during the shutdown. What they're doing is they're pulling money from that tax cut legislation that the president signed last year. That's the one big, beautiful bill. They've used this as a mechanism to pay a couple of avenues, whether that's our military and then the Coast Guard during the shutdown. That is what a senior administration official told me tonight. That's where they're going to pull these funds from. But it's not the first time that they've used this mechanism, this massive spending bill that the president signed back last year to essentially work their way out of tight space here.
Joe, I promise I'll get to you, but I mean, Libbey, this is a big news here. I just have to ask, how quickly could we expect to see TSA back on the jobs, the lines shrinking? Because I don't know if it's that simple. Do they all just come on back?
I don't know if it's that simple either, Jesse, because, I mean, the promise of a paycheck here, that would likely help with morale, but it's also really still low. Morale is still low for these TSA workers. I mean, there were so many of them who were calling out. And I will say the other part of this, I mean, obviously you want those TSA lines to shrink. That's what the American people want to see as well. You've got spring break coming up, the Easter holiday. But as far as this funding fight goes, as we're closing out talking about this, I mean, DHS has multiple agencies that are not being funded right now. It's not just TSA. So those problems are also going to stem further, as we haven't even seen the president sign off on this order that he said he's going to sign off on, Jesse.
Listen, these workers get paid. I don't care where it comes from. It's a great thing. Joe, going over to you. Okay, so Trump extended the deadline before the United States would strike Iran's energy sites. Can you tell us more about that? And by the way, these, I don't know, seeming contradictions from the president on whether the U.S. is willing to negotiate and get a deal.
Yeah, Jesse, this is now the second time that President Trump has sort of moved his own goalpost, his own deadline here. At first, it was the Iranians have 48 hours to release their grip on the Strait of Hormuz. Otherwise, the U.S. was going to be striking their civilian power plants. And that 48 hours turned into 5 days, which expires tomorrow. And then the 5 days now is 10 more days. And the President Trump says that he is extending these deadlines because, in his view, how he's framing it, the negotiations behind the scenes, he says, are going very well. He put that on Truth Social today. So, you know, the soundbite that you played about, he said, well, maybe we're not even willing. Maybe we don't want a negotiation. Maybe a bit of a tactic or sort of a, you know, bluster, because clearly the White House does want a negotiation. It's seeking one. They say that Iran also wants a negotiation. What is interesting, though, is that at the same time, you've got the carrot approach. You've also got the stick approach. And right now, we know, based on what members of Congress are saying, what members of the administration are saying, there is this buildup of troops, the 82nd Airborne, larger deployments heading to the region, and there is at least an option on the table for some kind of larger bombing campaign or ground campaign, potentially boots on the ground. We know that because lawmakers are coming out of briefings talking about it. And so you have this diplomatic route. You've also got this other, you know, overwhelming strike route. And the U.S. and Israel continue to go that route as well. So you got two at the same time here.
And just talking about whether Iran would be in a weakened position going into negotiating, real quick, we've got 30 seconds. Didn't Israel take out major Iranian leaders?
Yeah, and they continue to do this. Two more today. One was actually a naval commander who was in charge of some of the movements around the Strait of Hormuz, and the other naval intelligence officer. So, you know, they've got a list of targets. They continue to pick them off one by one.
Iran still has this will to keep on going. Very interesting, rapidly developing situation. Joe, Khalil, Libbey, Dean, the best. Thank you both so much.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.